All right, everybody, welcome back. Here we are with another episode of the Live Your Dreams podcast, and we are very excited for today's episode. I mean, this is a very special one, I know, especially for you, Chris. I mean, oh my God, very rarely do you meet an individual that has accomplished so much in their life and yet is so giving. This individual is a mentor to so many people, a major, and I'm talking top-tier businessman throughout the United States. In Staten Island, he is the founder and CEO of DOORtoDOORrealty. I'm telling you, this guy can do it all. First, you have to have some great things to say about this guy.
I know him for quite a long time. There's so much, there's not enough time to say everything about him. But he's a fantastic man, excellent friend, and a mentor at that.
100%. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome George Christo to the Live Your Dreams podcast.
Yeah, wow, guys, thank you very much.
No, seriously, George, you know, since I've met you, I've been fortunate. Chris introduced the two of us, I mean, years ago at this point. Yeah. It was probably 10 years. We know each other quite some
time.
Right? And really, not only you're always impressive with everything, you're always doing something new. You always have great businesses developing, buildings. You'll get more into that. But what I've noticed about you is you're always taking the time to help somebody. You have a lot of young men around you, mentees that you really help. You guide people like Chris. A lot of guidance in our business comes from Chris, you to Chris, to me. You have a major impact on a lot of things that are going on around you. I just want to say you're a class act, and it's a pleasure.
But a lot of that, I mean, even you guys are an amazing talent. Chris is an amazing talent. You're a very dynamic individual. You as well have done a lot of things and constantly reinvent yourself. There's a lot of dreams that you have that inspire me, that when I'm there and I'm listening to something and I have an opinion, I share it with you. But that's across the board. When you meet people that are dynamic personalities, that basically, are striving for something, that have a dream, that they're looking to do something. Everything starts with a simple thought, a simple comment. Some people accept it. Some people take it as criticism, and some people just don't understand that you need the right people around you to make it happen. And that's something that I've been trying to do for quite some time.
No, absolutely. And talk about the right people around you. You two, let's go back to the beginning. So what got you into this world, right? George Christo, the man, because you have a great backstory. Your family comes from Greece. You have an amazing family. You're very into Greek culture. You go back there quite often. What took George from a young boy that said, you know what, I want to motivate myself to one day get into this business world, go from not only going to Wall Street, but then opening up my own business and becoming the entrepreneur you are today?
Porsches. Yes, that's right. Porsches.
My friends into Porsche.
Yeah, I'm an avid fabricator. I build cars. I don't build them as much anymore because my schedule has taken up a lot of time. But I was building Porsches, and I was working. There was a position for a salesman in a Ford dealership on 65th Street and 8th Avenue. And this was a Ford dealership that had a doorway that was open, that opened up into a Porsche Volkswagen dealership. So I would be selling Porsches, I would be selling Fords, but I knew so much about Porsches that I was selling more Porsches than I was selling, Fords.
Sure.
So I met this guy that had come in, who was looking to get an RS America. At the time, it was the cheapest Porsche you could buy. It's funny because that Porsche now is worth several $100,000.
Sure.
It was the RS America in 1992. And we became friends. And over time, I helped him build a conversion. It was a 69 or 70 Porsche that we did a 90 conversion or 89 conversion on it. And he was very happy with it, and we became friends. And he says to me, "You're a great salesman. Why don't you come to work for me?" And that was 1993, 94. No, that was 1993. 1994, I said, all right, I'll give it a try. And I went to Wall Street, and I started working for him. And I'm in a immigrant family. I think 1996, 97 was my first $1 million that I made. And then from there, I started to understand companies. I started to understand what it took. I understood marketing. I understand speaking to wealthy individuals, investors. And the rest was building the right foundation, surround yourself with the right people making people money. And then fast forward, the market collapsed in 2000. And I had, at the time, built the largest stock position outside of the insiders of a company called Envision Technologies. And Envision Technologies, I owned 100,000 shares myself. The stock was at $15, $16. It went to 24, 25. I kept building a position. I owned 1,200,000 shares, and 100,000 shares of that was mine. I was buying alongside of my clients. And then the market collapsed. And the stock went from 15 to $3. I lost everything.
Yeah.
My $1 million house, because I had margin calls, I lost everything. So the dynamic there that's interesting is that, you look back retrospectively now and you look at it and you say, okay, what are some of the things that I did then that I should do and be looking for now? And that's part of learning from your mistakes. Fast forward, the market collapsed, margin calls, lost all my money, lost everything, sleeping on my cousin's couch, had a beautiful girlfriend at the time, and that was just short-lived because you realize it was there for the money. Your $50,000, $60,000, nights in Miami, in Mexico, wherever you were going. It was great. It was good. It was all gone, and you had to rebuild. I think the biggest lesson was that 6 months later, after the market collapsed and all the dust settled, Chase Manhattan Bank stepped in and bought the company at $70 a share. So you're talking about a guy that owned 1 million shares, it would have been a $60 million hit for me.
Yeah.
Building your business, everything was going into that. No, I was trading other companies too, but those were the trades that I was doing, on the daily. But owning and dealing with companies where the company themselves realized that this one guy in this firm had owned more shares than anybody in the market, and building, I was sold on the company, I thought. And why was I sold on the company? Because I thought at the time, based on where we were politically, globally, that bomb detection would have been something that was needed. And hence, yes, it was. The market collapsed, so the reality or the rationality of these companies was gone. People were clearing their portfolio on some things, trying to save other companies that were much greater in value. Well, at the time they weren't. And we got out. And then 6 months later, to see it in the paper that they got bought out, it would have been a very big hit for us. It would have been you're looking at, a 500, 600% return. I had other hits too, because I was also involved in a lot of the acquisition of companies at the time that were competing against Pfizer for erectile dysfunction.
Okay, sure.
So I did very well with other pills, other, applications that were being used, and I did very well with them. But a lot of the money that I was making was going into this, into this company, and that was it. So from there, I said, okay, let's move on. What are we doing next? 2001, 2002, I started Door-to-Door Realty. I had a 5-year track record of making over $1 million a year. It was very easy for me to borrow money. So I went out and I started borrowing money. And we had friends that were in the mortgage business. And we would go out and they would say, you got to get these products. They're negative amortization. They're this, they're that. Like, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
I stayed steadfast. And we know some friends that did. I stayed steadfast on purchasing them with the lowest interest rate possible, renovating these buildings, creating in low-income neighborhoods. So I went after poverty. I understood that there was a lot more turn of the economy that we were experiencing, and it happened. And by the time 2008 came around, I had accumulated a significant amount of debt. And with interest rates and buildings that were paying the rent, instead of me going out at the time and buying fancy cars and living it up in South Beach again, I was just focused on building a business in real estate. I was very fortunate at the time to meet my life partner, and she was an architect. She was very talented. She had come out of a very, very interesting career. She worked at some high-end firms. She was extremely talented. And then I threw the business aspect to it. It's funny because we did our first deal and she's sitting at my table as we first met. And she says, are you looking to buy this property? I said, yeah. She goes, you can build a 10-family there.
Sure.
I was like, really? She goes, yeah, if you knock these down, you do this. Lo and behold, I wound up flipping the project. And I had just met her a few years, right? And I said to her, I did the deal, I finished the deal. She didn't know what I was doing. And she came over and I said, because she had just come from Louisiana. She had a lot of student debt for her architectural degree here. And so I said, what do you owe on your student debt? And she told me. I wrote her a check. I said, here you go.
I tell you, I'd like to say something also about you pivoting from losing money in the market. You actually, as a mentor also, he's given me great advice. I took a loss as well.
Yeah.
But that loss I carried with me. You moved on from that. You pivoted and told me that a lot of people have lost a lot more money than you. And to just, get your shit together, basically.
So what's helped me, and that's a very good point. And I will tell you, you are the most dynamic person in my life.
Oh, thank you.
And I mean that because I think the difference between you and I is that you're very emotional and you're a true person, you're a good person, you're a giving person. But there has to be, for me, something that has to add up. And that's what helps me process. 1 + 1 is 2. So, okay, fine, we're making an investment. Why are we making it? Is it, because we're participating in frenzied bullshit? And we'll get into that because I have a philosophy on that. And for me, when I got on to real estate, the stock market is very calculated for people that are very successful. And I recognized a number of things. I recognized that in the stock market, I didn't grow up in it. I didn't have relationships in the stock market that could open up those doors for me. I simply got into the stock market and I understood that you don't exist unless you make people money. But at the same time, you need to have the right resources to make people money.
Sure.
And I recognized in real estate, I had better resources than I did in the stock market because my stock market career was about 5 or 6 years. I've been in real estate now for 20 years. And I think a big portion of that is because, Sabrina was very instrumental in teaching me the methodology on buying undervalued properties for development. I buy properties on an income approach, yes, and that's simple. She has taught me how to analyze community, how to do urban development, how to understand how a community needs to grow by stimulating it, by creating components that will stimulate the local commerce and identifying visual corridors that will create value to your investments. She's taught me all that.
Sure.
And I leveraged it. And she gave me 2 kids, and relationships aren't easy. and they're definitely not. But together, we're working through it. And the one thing that hasn't wavered with her is her talent, and her talent in architecture, and her talent in urban development. So that's definitely something that's worked through door to door. And I'm surrounded by very interesting women. I have a woman in my life that is my second wife, Elena.
Yeah, she's amazing.
We need Elena.
I don't know. I gotta say, Elena's probably my mother. Why did you spend money on this? Why am I paying this? What is wrong with you?
By the way, she's a secretary and a great one at that.
Yes, yes. But she's my assistant. Yes, she's my assistant. And I got to credit her sister Gloria, who's my accountant at Schwartz Accounting, and I have the same accountant. And that's something that's important for me.
Yeah.
What's important for me is that when you start to build relationships with people, the people that stick with you over time will start to find value in the relationship. If you don't think that the people that are in your life don't find value to you being a dick sometimes, or being, very, very strategic, because they got to like you at your worst, they got to like you at your best.
Sure.
You got to rethink the people you're with. And I'm very blessed to have the people that I've built relationships with in my life that keep the ball in play for me. So let's swing back, and I'm going to conclude about 2007. The market collapsed. 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was running out of the houses. I didn't do any house investing at the time. And all I had was income properties. And all the properties that I had were at 7%, 6% interest. When the market collapsed, I was converting my notes at 2.5%, 3%. So I was doubling my income based on whatever I had leveraged, because based on my income at the time, I was able to buy things with no money down, but I was doing it on income properties that were paying my debts. So, and I was saving the money. So any renovations that I did would create appreciation in the asset.
Sure.
And as I would find new tenants, the new tenants would pay the market rent for the apartment or whatever we were allowed to rent it for. And we were making money. So I just kept buying properties.
Sure, yeah.
And, fast forward to 2023, we're still doing, poverty level housing. I met a group of guys that Sabrina worked with, that she was moonlighting for, redesigning, 10,000 units, 15,000 apartments in the city. And they were rebranding themselves, and she was creating some of the visual finishes for them, low cost, high impact. And we started building for them because I wound up getting a van, with a bunch of tools on a credit card. So it's funny, when I lost everything, what I did, because I had good credit, I never messed up my credit.
That's good. Sure.
I had $150,000 Mercedes waiting for the lease to expire, and I still was figuring out how to pay that lease without saying, screw this. And, I gave in the car. And, at the time I was driving a $600 van that was burning a quart of oil a day. I had my credit cards, and I think I was up to like 25 credit cards.
Wow. I remember the coffee cup.
I had a coffee cup full of credit cards. I had a coffee cup full of credit cards. Yes, and I was signing up for new credit cards. $500 limit. Okay, fine. $500 limit. Okay, fine.
Sure.
2 months, 3 months later, raise the limit, raise the limit, raise the limit. To now, I had cash advances of $20,000, $30,000. So I was taking the cash advances, renovating the properties, taking the money from the income of the properties, paying the credit cards, and maintaining.
Sure.
And, I was doing it. The one thing that's the most important thing for me, and sometimes I get emotional, but I have to find a way not to and stay strategic, is don't give yourself excuses. Don't be happy with an excuse. Excuses are for losers. Winners have a strategy. Yeah. And whenever I had an excuse, I said, okay, fine. Are you going to live with that? Now let's figure out how we can make it happen. And I made it happen to the point where I was refinancing the assets on a lower interest rate, paying down the credit cards, and then moving to the next one. I got into construction superintendent. I started building buildings on an income approach. And now, my portfolio of building, I don't have so many, but we're working on a 100 unit. We're working on to 10 units. I have a partner that, fortunately, because the market has gotten to where it is, I was able, well, at the time I met him and we started building houses together. But because the bureaucracy of, city agencies right now are going through a rebirth, and the rebirth of technology, AI, whatever the applications are, the people that suffer is the first wave of people that are going through these city agencies trying to figure out how they can streamline themselves. And when we are going through it, if you don't have the pockets to carry yourself through the delays, you're blown up.
Yeah.
So I was always, okay, you got a building, you think it's going to cost you $1 million to build, I'm just throwing numbers, have $1.5 million just in case. And based on where we are in development, the $1.5 million is probably where you're going to be. So he's gone into the restaurant business. He's got a great partner. They're doing really well. He started with one restaurant. In a matter of 3 or 4 years, they're dynamic. With Peter Boutros, they're up to 15 restaurants.
Nice. And
and they're growing in New Jersey and Staten Island. I mean, they're everywhere. They have a chain that they're looking to do. Once, Hewlett-Packard, when I read the book From Good to Great, Hewlett-Packard always doubted, you think we're going to get you think we'll get this right? And there's nothing wrong with being pessimistic as long as you're not sitting there saying it's not going to happen. You can say, you think you're going to do this? All right, let's do it. And you go out and you make it happen. And that's the most important thing with anything that you do. Look at you guys. You guys are amazing. You guys have identified a space for you to build off your resources when the market, you tell me this story all the time. You're a big inspiration to me, Joe. And Chris, you filmmakers, the glory of filmmakers is work really hard, try to get it out there and hope people like it. And if they like it, you start making some money and you make enough money to make a better film. And then a better film and a better film. But then there's that crossroad with, okay, guys are spending $100 million and we're spending, $100,000 and we have a better film because it's more, it makes you think, it makes you more involved. And you guys have done that with this show. And you're growing. So, at what point do you guys come on and tell us about your dreams?
Well, I hear this making lemonade out of lemons. You did it in 2008. You're saying that we're doing it now, current day. It's fantastic. I mean, it's just really amazing. But we're not giving up and we're figuring it out, which is another great piece of advice I got from this gentleman here. It's one of the best things I've ever heard and applied to my life. I came to Joe, movies are not making money. Let's figure this out. We started a podcast, and look at us now. We have people, interesting guests like yourself.
Yes. And that's the collaboration. And, as you guys grow, as I grow, so, the most important advice you could give to somebody is that, I grew up in Bay Ridge. I grew up in Sunset Park. I grew up in Bensonhurst. So those are 3 communities that I grew up in. I have a ton of friends in Bensonhurst. I have a ton of friends in Bay Ridge. I have a ton of friends in Sunset Park. And you got to be a politician because there would be times when Bensonhurst would be fighting Bay Ridge or Bay Ridge would be fighting Sunset Park.
Sure.
So it's a real dynamic to try to balance all that. And you can't stay in touch with everybody. You love everybody, even the ones you don't love. Right? I mean, even the ones you don't like. But you love them. You have a great history. But if you had to stay in touch with everybody, then where is the most of your time being spent? Because the one thing that a lot of people don't stay focused on is proper time value. And then when you start meeting people that are successful and you're like, this guy's unemotional, or this guy is not this, or this guy's not that, start to look at what his focus is. Start to look at what his game plan is, or his goals, or his dreams, and start to appreciate people for what they're going for.
Mm-hmm.
And accept that person for that. And then you'll be able to file that person in your resource of contacts. And when something crosses over, it's not that, okay, he didn't buy me a drink, or, I called him and he couldn't make our dinner or whatever. It's where the crossover is, on the crossroads of where you all are going in your pursuit for success, pursuit for your dreams, pursuit for putting food on the table, right? And, some people have those passions, and you got to appreciate people for their passions.
That's so well said, George. And for so many people that are, listening and trying to start a business or start following their dreams, what you said makes sense. Appreciate the people around you. Take a step back, because what's great about you is you strategically look at things. You'll take a step back. You're not going to just dive off the side of the cliff hoping there's water, in the pool down there. You take a step back, you look around, you analyze what's happening. So, yeah, you may take risks. You have the coffee cup of credit cards. But were you just gambling and just like a lunatic just trying to get lucky and throwing money all over? No, you strategically planned out what you were doing. So good risk versus...
I have zero credit card debt, by the way. Zero. So, fast forward from 2008, real estate business is growing. I meet a lot of interesting people throwing money at me. I met some really good people that gave me a lot of money. They're family members. And now you have a responsibility to perform. So now you're the horse at the track that is got a bunch of bets on you. You better make it happen. I want to open a private equity firm. I want to open a private equity firm and speak to clients about raising money and buying stock from insiders, because there was a law that was passed from Obama that allowed you to. So because the market had crashed in 2008. They created a lot of new laws, and they allowed insiders to sell their shares. Now you could sell your shares, but you can't sell them to the market.
Sure,
you got to sell them privately. So funds were able to buy insider shares, and if you were smart enough to buy the right companies, when the companies went public, that was your liquidity event. There you go. Yeah. So that's what happened, and lo and behold, fast forward 2021. That was in 15 that they did this. And 2021, there's still a market there. We still have a lot of investors. George, let's do this. This was about 18 months ago. We've probably got about $50 million that we've raised in the last 2 years.
That's great.
We're buying companies. I'm not telling you what companies we're buying because I don't want that to be, that's not the point here. But we're buying really good companies. They're called unicorns. Unicorn companies are companies that are generating over $1 billion in revenues. We like for these companies to have leaders in certain sectors of that market that have invested in them. And you're talking about the top, technology investors in the world. So these guys are vetting the product for us and they're saying, okay, we're investing $900 million. We're investing. So we're like, okay, that's good for us. We're looking for these companies to be generating, revenues, unicorns over $1 billion. The average companies that we're investing in are over $5 billion to $10 billion. We're looking at those good valuations, and we're buying shares from as many insiders that we can that are turning over, management, whatever the case may be. We buy these shares. We buy them through other funds. We buy them wherever we could get the shares, as long as we get the right number, and we bring them to our investors. That has done extremely well for us. Built some significant positions. And we got a lot of, invested big money guys that like what we do that have given us a lot of money. But what we did at the time that was important, that's another piece to this, is we watched, there was a significant shift in real estate. Money came out of real estate at that time, 2020, 2021, the COVID came. So real estate, there was a shift of money coming out of real estate, and interest rates started to rise too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that money started to flow into private equity, and we followed the flow of money. So we followed the flow of money into private equity. And hence, in the last, couple of years, we've done very well raising a lot of money in these companies that we have. Bob has been involved with companies that have gone public before, that have done extremely well.
Sure.
Palantir was one, DraftKings, Uber, what's the other one? Spotify.
Spotify.
Yeah. Not Spotify. I'm not saying Spotify. Facebook.
Okay. Yeah.
So there was a lot of investors that we had and people that were very aware of the performance that we got into this. Right now, private equity, these companies are still doing very well, but the shift of money is coming out. It's still staying into private equity, but it's being diverted. You got money going into bonds again, and you got money going into real estate. Right now, the commercial real estate market is for shit. And that's when you buy.
Yeah, just like in 2008 when you capitalized.
So the one thing that I'm recognizing is emotionally, you don't want to chase the herd. You want to be intelligent enough to get in front of it. And the idea is that you buy straw hats in the winter. And you sell straw. That's never changed. There's a lot of guys that just follow the momentum, and all you're doing is just following frenzied bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, you got to hope that you're lucky enough that the market exceeds your entry point so you could take an exit.
Sure.
I've turned into an old dog. And I want to own it so fucking cheap that at any point in the future, if I take an exit, as long as I know where I'm putting the money next, I'll take it. Even if it's not the right opportunity to buy, as long as the opportunity to sell is there, I'm taking it. I still own Facebook at $17.80.
Wow.
So, and I watched it collapse from 300, and I bought more. But that's the story in a nutshell. And then you can take the nuances of your life experiences, your friendships, your relationships, and you throw them in the mix. And that's momentary.
Mm-hmm.
What the most important thing about what we do is what's your dream? Where do you want to be? And every step you take should have that as the value of where you're going. And when you do that, that's when you define your character. And that's what's important for me, because I might meet people at a certain time in my life where I'm ready to talk about stocks, or I'm ready to talk about real estate, or I'm ready to talk about whatever the next move is. But my character in each and every one of those is led by my values in being successful, rendering a return for our investors, taking the responsibility of doing the right thing, keeping your costs down. And, you know, I think the most important thing is, I say this all the time, and I don't know if it's appropriate to say, but it is, I don't really have any enemies other than the people that can't take criticism and the tenants that didn't pay me rent. And I still have tenants that I've evicted that are still very good friends of mine.
There you go. Sure.
And I had to go through the eviction process. But, you know, I look at that in a way where you're taking every opportunity to try to, you know, do something.
Sure.
Some people's values are different than others. I got to accept it. And it takes me back to saying the guy that has a certain desire to be successful in something, I got to accept him for that.
You're absolutely right. That's a great way to look at people and accepting the whole understanding of people's values are different. You can't judge people in the same way you look at the world.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed and mad at everybody because everybody's perspective is different. That's so well said. Even has to do with business or just personal. People's values are different. Everybody stands at a different place.
Yeah. No, you know, I met Sabrina, and she gave me the first child, and then, which was remarkable. And then she gave me another child. She knew that I was from a Greek family, and we wanted to, your name has to match my brother's kids' names. And she was okay with it. So we baptized the kids in my father's town in Greece. And she gave me that. And I couldn't thank her enough. And I have Adonia, and I have my son Costantino. And they're wonderful kids. And my daughter is now going for architecture.
That's fantastic.
But I sit back and I watch my daughter, and she's so critical.
Where did she get that from, George?
But I don't know. I got to be honest with you, Joe. Yes, I agree. But when I was 18 years old, I didn't have a care in the world. I wanted to build a really cool car and drive around and pick up chicks. So, but she's steadfast. My son is very focused. He plays 3 instruments. He's in martial arts. He's teaching martial arts. He's doing this. He's doing that. And my daughter is very talented. And her mother is so focused on her coming to age with all the knowledge that she has in being a designer and bringing the awareness of things that, I socialize with a lot of different families, some poor, some middle class, if there are any left, and some very, very, very successful families. And they all have a different dynamic. And what's interesting is that every family has their own dynamic, and it's defined by where the family's going and what you're doing, the family unit. And I accept every single one of them. And I come from a Greek family. We started criticism. We found critical thinking, yeah. And critical thinking, but also criticizing people. Mm-hmm. So it's criticism. And when you start to come of age in your Greek fathers, and I'm not that Greek, I'm first generation, but I speak fluently, and I have, we spend a lot of time in Greece. Criticism is very relevant. They're all criticizing. Everybody's criticizing about everything. What are you wearing that for? What are you doing this for? What are you doing that for? What are you doing? And so it's interesting to see how the kids and the family unit comes of age, that in the beginning, Sabrina was having a hard time with it. She would take it personally, like, you're criticizing me. And I had to agree with her that this is what I was doing. I had to stop. But the most important thing in a relationship is communication. When you lose the level of communication and the family unit separates by the 2 leaders of the family, now you're starting to process independently, and you're going to have your own value. You're going to have your own value. And then how are you interpreting that value to your kids? And there's got to be a balance there in order for you to deliver it to a point where you recognize this and you say, okay, now how do we deliver it to our kids so it's not sided this way or that way? There's a balance to it. And let them decide where they're going with it. So Ray Dalio, let's get to Ray Dalio.
Blackrock, right?
Bridgewater. I read his book. I listened to him narrate his own, which is awesome. He is somebody that taught me that you try to use every tool in your toolbox. And even at an early age, he took his children to get evaluated psychologically to understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, so that he would steer them in a direction that would support what they were and who they were. And that was prolific for me, because I was like, wow, yeah, you're right. So a lot of people, and they say that you have, everybody needs a little bit of narcissism. Some more than others, some to an unbearable, level. But what's important is to find the balance. And I think that balance, Sabrina did that for me when she gave me my children, and she's a wonderful mother. And she worked through it. And with work, I would call her. She's got, pacifier in one foot. And she's fork feeding, spoon feeding the other child.
With blueprints on the other hand.
Right. And ponytailed, typing away because she's great at that. And, I would call her and she would just lose it. I recognized then that you have to find a certain level of balance between your communication in order for it to work. And not all times relationships work. But if you made a decision to do this, it takes two. And as long as both people are committed to finishing what you started, that's the emotional side, right? Mm-hmm. Because then you take that into business, because I have partners that we're constantly fighting. We're constantly fighting. There's always something that we're fighting about. But then after we're fighting, after all the animosity and all this and this, it's just unbelievable fighting. We take a step back and say, holy shit, we did that. We did that. And then everything's okay at the table. Because, guys, let's look at this. And we're like, oh, shit. And then we're like, all right, we love you. I love you. Yeah, let's do it. And then we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then the fighting starts again. And the fighting starts again. And then before you know it, 6 months later, you're fighting. You're not talking to this person. And then you finally reach your threshold where you reach a level of success. And you're like, you know what we're fighting about, right? Yeah. Oh, shit, we did it again? Yeah. Oh, man. All right, let's get together. Let's do this. And I don't know, you got to find a love for that, too. Sure. So, yeah,
if you're fighting, right, and you're in, these relationships, whether it be with your spouse or your business partner or people in general, they never taught us in school about relationship building, how to work, kindly with others. That wasn't a course. But what I also heard about you mentioning about Ray Dalio is audiobooks, something that we're both very fond of doing.
Yeah.
What you haven't learned in school, you can self-learn yourself.
Yeah. I do that. I take books and I put them on audio, and I have a full shop in my house, and I'll wake up, I'll drink my coffee, and I'll go in the garage. And, during COVID, I built a 68 Corvette.
Yeah.
Now I'm just getting to drive it now and working out the bugs, because you work out the bugs when it's not running to get it running. Now it's running. It looks good. Everything is right. Everything's new. And then, okay, now you got to go drive it. That's a whole other slew of issues. The tires, the this and that, your throttle at this RPM, blah, 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 blah. And, you work through issues. And I think that's another point in what we do. I met a kid by the name of Nick Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
I met him a few years ago. I was very impressed with him. He was 21 years old. And he started a company called Bridge to IPO. And we started talking. And he is a brainchild, Bridge to IPO, because he's so savvy with technology and with marketing and with, how to target a market, how to build a lead source, how to do he loves it. And at a very young age, this kid was focused and passionate about building a marketing firm, building something that will grow. And, through his efforts, and he wants to be part of something that his efforts go into what he's doing, and the reward is that he's watching it build, never driven by the money.
Yeah.
And at a very young age, we would always have a problem, and he'd come back with a solution. I would give him a suggestion to something, and I would think he was ignoring me. And then we'd meet again 2-3 weeks later, and this is my thought on this. I'm thinking he doesn't take notes or anything. It's like, I thought this was gone, and I find a solution. So it's remarkable to meet dynamic individuals like this. And my inspiration with him is that he's always thinking forward. He's always looking for a problem. Sabrina's that way too. Sabrina can't design unless you give her a slew of problems. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, I can't. This is too open for me. I can't create something here. We need parameters. If I don't have parameters, I'm going to create something, and then I'm going to have to be dealing with that parameters. I'm wasting my time.
Sure.
Go get me the parameters. Go get me what the zoning is. Go get me. I mean, she does it herself, but based on where we're developing, just like Nick, he identifies the problem, and there are very, very strict guidelines on how we can speak to investors. And as a fund, we got to be very cautious on how we market our fund. So there's always challenges. And our fund has 3 people in it, the 3 partners and our assistant. And my office does the back end of it. And that's it. The idea is to get in front of investors that want to open up a conversation and say, okay, let's talk to you about it.
Sure.
We have a fund manager that stays on top of everything we do. And it's tedious because there's an age requirement. There's a net worth requirement. We don't deal with people that are not qualified. They got to be accredited investors. Everybody's going to be, even if they don't make enough, if the guy says, and these are things that help us build the character without circumventing the reality of what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. And that's important because a lot of people try to take shortcuts. And a shortcut's okay as long as you step on the line. Once you fucking step over it, you're out. So anybody could go rob something and sell it. You made 100% profit. But show me somebody that could come up with a way to make money that's not the most intelligent idea in the room. I never wanted to be the smartest guy in the room. I never wanted to be the smartest guy. And I wrote about that. For 3 years, I wrote articles on LinkedIn. And I talked about some things that were inspirations for me. Building door to door, dealing with community, dealing with things that help, build the company. And a lot of those things, and when you guys asked me to come on the show, and I've watched you now for a bunch of months, and I see how you edit, and I see what you guys are doing, and I see how talented you are with your production. When you asked me, I was so honored to do it because not that you have 100 million people following you. I believe one day you will, because I believe you're passionate. I believe what you're doing and how passionate you are and your talents are going to shine through. And I think you guys are a dynamic personality together.
Thank you. No, thank you, George. Very appreciated. We try to be as dynamic as possible, right, Chris?
We're trying. I'm trying. You mentioned something about architecture before, actually, with Sabrina, but just in general, there was this phrase I heard that obstacles are the best friends of architecture.
Yeah.
So if there's a tree, how do I build
right.
the tree? You create something beautiful.
Right. God forbid you cut down a tree.
No,
go to jail. What fucking trees? Don't talk about trees.
We're talking about emotion and business and great things that it's just you and Sabrina are doing together. You talked about community a second back there. You do so much. I don't think people realize, and I'm sure people there do, but how much you develop that North Shore in Staten Island. So many places that you've helped develop, and you've helped out with the real estate. You help out the people that go in there. I've seen these small places turn into beautiful businesses multiple times around you. I mean, that has to, you have an office down there, you're located there. That's a place that's kind of up and coming. There's a lot of people that are changing. It's a changing neighborhood. you have been a huge part of that neighborhood becoming so beautiful. Such great people that live there. That has to make you, when you talk about emotion in business, feel good when you get to walk into one of the coffee shops you helped develop.
That's why we changed. Remember, we saw the documentary because it was a tsunami. It's fair. We're taking over that North Shore. So
right. It's fantastic what you do for everybody there.
Yeah. You never look at those things. Those, it's funny because you're sitting on the outside looking in. Those are relationships with people that I built that had a dream, that had a passion. And a lot of those businesses, Killsborough is one of them, Craft House is one of them, just to name a couple, that had a dream. These guys had a dream to do this. And we got together every time they had a problem. And we worked through it. And, they started to build on their own, and now they're doing really well. And I commend them. But there was a shift in the market down there. And I think there was a lot, I have an opinion, and I'm not going to say it, about in development, the word gentrification is a bad word.
Beautification better.
Beautification is even a bad word too for some people. I'm going to tell you why. Because when you go into lower income neighborhoods and you beautify or you gentrify, it means that their rents going higher is just a matter of time. And people don't like that. There are a lot of these small communities that are instilled, that were there for a while, that run the civics, and their opinion matters, and these people are there, they're part of the community, and their voice is heard. But what winds up happening is that there's opportunities for large parcels, and when large parcels sit idle for time and people are challenging what's going to go there, the wrong element could go there, and then it sets it back a few years. But then there's an absorption of that demographic, and then you move forward into other projects that can tip the scales. And the idea is that you have 20-80 projects, so 20% poverty, 80%, affordable, because affordable is not necessarily poverty. Affordable could be two people making $50,000 a year. It's the average monthly income is a number that they use to figure out where the area is and what the rent should be. But based on construction, it might cost you more to render that building, and then where are you? So you got to be conscious of those costs. And then there's a lot of subsidies that come out. But there are city agencies that say, no, we want more housing. And then the element tips the scales of more poverty. And then there's a concept in development where it's the smartening up or the dumbing down effect. You can take, the caveat to that. There's a mean between poverty and wealth, art. And when art is not exposed as much anymore, and people aren't coming out for the arts as much, it starts to dwindle. In these communities, when you have wealth or, young urban professionals that come into the area and they start socializing with, the artists in these, makeshift little galleries, but, the presentation is right, all that is right. What winds up happening is these younger urban professionals that can afford, $500,000 to buy the artwork and put it on their wall, and then bring somebody that might say, wow, that's a nice piece, I want one too. And now that local artist has a venue to sell art. That's a very critical component in these lower income neighborhoods when you have an art component. That's why it's important. Technology's enabled us to not have to be on Main Street to create a creative product. You could be, in the backyard somewhere, as long as it's zone compliant, and create, and people will come there and take your product. from a little Danish tour, whatever it is, you know, whatever the case may be, food, you know, leather belts, you know, whatever, shoes, chocolate.
Yeah.
That dwindled down in that community for a while.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of absence in the components that you need to raise the income level or commerce in these areas. If you don't have the right balance, you wind up with a bunch of 99-cent stores. If you start to bring in people that have, you know, a little more disposable income, you'll start to get better quality stuff. Will you get to the point where Starbucks wants to be on your corner? Well, then you're paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month rent.
Sure.
You know, and, you know, the city agencies have raised their rental amount now to the point in this community in Staten Island that you talk about that, and I don't know, you know, how important this is for your show, but you have subsidized housing for poverty level housing that's almost as much money as open market rentals.
Yeah.
So now you're saying, okay, where are we? But the disposable income component isn't there. So the balance of commerce is very important in these communities. And that neighborhood there, there's a lot of great restaurants in these lower income neighborhoods. These are destination locations. We need more. A lot of these elements have started to slow down for me in that area. I have buildings that I'm building. And, you know, like we're doing something now that we're focused on. I can't talk about it yet, but it's 100 units. And it would be a component in the neighborhood that will stimulate the local commerce of the community. I've had people offer me for this piece a lot of money. And because I live in that community, I didn't take it. Do I kick myself in the ass? Yeah. Do people tell me I'm stupid? Yeah. You know, could I have made millions of dollars, you know, sooner? Or even if I make millions, I could have. I didn't. And I asked myself if what would that have done to me and what would that have done to the community? Because for me, as somebody that identifies opportunities, would it hurt other investments that I have in the immediate area? So it's a daisy chain for me that helps me create this visual experience in investing in communities. And that's part of believing in a community.
Sure.
Did I want Riker Island, you know, offices there, you know, with students? Did I want, you know, people that had, you know, whatever it is? You know, no, because I didn't think it would be conducive to building the community. So all that stuff took a hold, not a hold, but it slowed down. And because the shift of money and the focus, because of where the development of the area had slowed down for a while, I had to follow other paths and other opportunities. And now what happens is the rising tides lift all boats. So real estate for me is doing well. We're doing a real estate fund. We're launching Income Equity Partners. It's a $100 million fund we're doing. We're anticipating for that to have a real good kickoff. We're raising money in private equity, so we're looking for the pre-IPO companies, and we're packaging deals going forward on an income approach because the opportunity right now is commercial real estate.
Let's go back. What I want to say, what makes me so fascinating, you go back and let's talk about the young man you talked about who wanted to have the Porsche. And now you fast forward to the man who has a cup of coffee and listens to the audiobook before he goes door to door every day.
Right.
What would you say to the young man who wanted that Porsche? Instead of saying everything to everybody out there, how you follow your dreams, what would you say differently to that young man back in the day and said, I want to be the guy that can get a Porsche?
Go do it. Go get the fucking Porsche.
Get it.
Get it. Just get it. Get it. Don't listen to the guys that say, save your money, you could do it. Just go buy the fucking Porsche. Don't wreck it. And if you have insurance and you wreck it, you get your money back. Make sure it looks good. And when you're selling, take the money and you move next. Because when I got onto Wall Street, I had just built a 930 turbo Porsche.
There you go.
An amazing car. Car would be worth $500,000. But anyway, you know, and I built it. It was a flawless car. It was tough. But I made a decision that I needed that money to support me while I went to Wall Street. And then my girlfriend at my time, you know, she was supportive too, and she was great. And I sold it. I got my money. Maybe I sold it too fast because I listed it. There's a few cars that I listed in the paper at I made the decision early in the morning. I listed it, and by 12 o'clock, it's gone.
There you go. Yeah.
I was just doing a 280Z I had it on a rotisserie, full fabrication panel, knocking and everything. And I finally decided to sell it because my partner's like, you know, let's do this private equity. And I put it in the paper at 4 in the morning, and the guy came with a truck at 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Done that quick. Yeah.
Because you priced it right.
Priced it right. I'm happy with the price. I got happy with what I got. The guy came and the car was on the rotisserie. I just had to take it off and drop it. And just drop it.
Yeah.
I will tell you, when I dropped it and I looked at it, because the wheels were on it, it was just fat. It was going to be a drift car. That was driving the street. Those are hard moments. I still think about it. It was a hard moment. It really was. It was a tearjerker for me. You know, that's where I get emotional because it's my sweat equity in there. And it was gone. And I got my money. Let's do private equity.
Keep moving. Yeah.
Keep moving. I'm always looking at cars to buy.
Okay.
But I got to keep the herd very light. I have residents around the world. I have residents, you know, in Florida as well. And the one thing that now my focus is, you know, at some point to spend 4 months in New York, 4 months, you know, in Europe, 4 months in Florida, and then mix that up. And, you know, could I have waited to buy these residents and spend this money? I could have bought more investment properties. Could have. But I didn't. I bought them because I did. And I wanted to. And now I own them. And I keep working. And nothing has changed. I'm going after it. And my dream is to retire, still on my boat, doing deals. I love fishing. I get back to that on top of fabricating. But fabricating, I got to figure something else out. And the pursuit for self-fulfillment. 15 years ago, somebody introduced me to the Maslow pyramid. So I think that applies to your comment about the kid with the...
Yeah, definitely does.
Is he going to buy the Porsche and he can't feed himself? Is he going to buy the Porsche and he doesn't have a shelter? He doesn't, you know, he doesn't have a place to sleep, rest his head? Then that's wrong. If you have all that, whether you're living with your parents or not, doesn't matter. I don't care. You're living with your parents and you're mooching off them, good for you. Just go out for the fucking dream. If you're sitting there on the couch smoking pot and just no. If you're doing it and you're living in your family's basement until you get on your own, good for you. And then the hierarchy of Maslow, right? And little by little, you get to the top. And I don't know if I'm at the top yet because I'm working towards that, right? But it's self-actualization.
There's something you said years ago, which always stuck with me too, that, you know, you're going to work hard, right? So your kids won't have to work. How do you stop someone with that drive? It's not for yourself. It's so unselfish and such a giving attitude. It's a win-win.
That's the other dynamic. The other dynamic is, so there's a study done that the largest dissipation of wealth in America is being experienced because the immigrant generation would come in and create wealth, and then the kids would dissipate it. A large majority of that dissipated wealth was for education, you know, the biggest debt machine ever created. So it goes back to having those values and teaching your kids. You know, my daughter is 18. She drives. Yes, I bought her the car. And she goes, you know, I'm paying for everything else. Sweetheart, do you have money in your pocket? I'm good, Dad.
That's great.
Not I'm going out. I need money. In some cases, I owe her money. because she goes to the office, she works, and she has an opinion about who we pay. When we go out to events, she's like, you paid that guy. You just paid that guy that much money. He should add a better hello.
Critical thinking,
She should add a better hello. You know, my son is unemotional. But when you see him get emotional, he's hurt. And he's working on his temper. But, you know, he's another one that's starting to learn about criticism. And, yeah, so to ask you a question again, if somebody asked me if they should buy the Porsche, you got a roof over your head? You know where your next meal's coming from? Go fucking buy it.
I love it. I don't think you can get better than that. And George, again, you're one of the most interesting people I've ever met. Every time I'm around you is fascinating. You learn something new. You motivate people. And again, an enjoyable person. You always be around. Always. Always. Chris, is there anything you want to add?
I mean, I'll spend as much time with this guy as I can. I mean, I have since the early 90s. There's not a day has gone by that I haven't thought of you, if not called you, if not spent time with you, take a ride.
Yeah, no,
it's really, and no, but when it comes down to it, as we get older, the one comment that's come to my mind lately is as I get older, time becomes more valuable.
Yes.
I have less of it. However, I still want to spend time with you.
No, I want to just say this. So over the years, I've done a lot of, you know, I've started philanthropical events, and I do this event that I've been doing for children with cancer. We did it in the last few years. We did it last year. It's called the Night in White. I've been raising money for the Jewish Community Center. It's
JCV.
The last couple of years, I've been raising money for Sunrise Day Camp and its children and their families. It's a resource center for children with cancer and their families going through something. I read a very interesting, a sad statistic that middle-class families that have a child that experiences cancer will go, you know, find themselves beneath the poverty line. So this resource center is very big to send kids to this resource center. It's a support center. You know, it's sad. So, you know, I'm not even going to repeat what made me sad about it. But, you know, these kids go there, they meet. It's a great experience for them as they go through the treatment. It's heart-wrenching, but I really, really enjoyed doing this and doing these events. It takes a lot out of me. The last one really, you know, was a great event. We did it at Casa Belvedere. We call it Night in White. Great performers, great event. So Night in White will live, and we will do more events. And we're always looking for some philanthropical non-for-profit to support in their endeavors, wherever that might be. It might be, children with cancer. It might be autism. It might be children on the spectrum. It might be, you know, whatever the case may be. It might be homeless children. One of the big things for me is displaced children that have come from broken homes, that are poor, that are still identifying their sexual identity, and they can't place themselves. It's a real challenge for these children.
Sure.
And for me, I really don't care about any of all that. You know, I really don't care. What I do care about is for people to identify a certain value and to identify what they're going to do with their lives and the passions of what they're going to do and go after it.
Absolutely.
That's it. That defines you. And when you fail miserably, completely fail, and everything is over, that's what's going to build your character. Figure it out. What's next? What's next? If you look at people that are successful and you see how many times they have failed, it's remarkable. It's remarkable. Even Warren Buffett's failed.
100%.
And, you know, he's a guy, a perfect example, Warren Buffett, and you read all these people's books. For me, it's inspirational. For him, it's the value of the deal. It's not a matter of buying the Porsche. He sold, this is one of the richest men in the world. He sold his house a couple of years ago, $750,000. You know, my house is worth more than this. You know, so you, and what does he enjoy? He enjoys a cheeseburger. Yeah, right. You know, Coke. You know, like this is, but you start to get blinded by your passions Well, it was a pleasure being with you guys.
George,
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you. I'm sure there's so many people that can learn from you. Thank you so much for taking time to come on. And again, this is the Live Your Dreams podcast. We are so excited. George Christo, everybody. Door Realty. This man is incredible. Again, the Night in White. Check it out. It's incredible. Anybody who wants to get involved with some amazing events, we'll have George's contact info, places you can reach out to him down below in the links. You can, again, see those on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Audible, all over the place. So make sure to have all of George's information below. Chris, I know you want to say a little goodbye to this guy because I know you guys are...
I'm on LinkedIn, too.
LinkedIn, well...
There's too much to say, not enough time to say it, but he's a great man. I suggest following him. You'll learn a lot like I have. And just keep your dreams alive. Keep moving forward.
Again, everybody, it's Joe Gawalis for Chris Victor over here. We're very excited. It's the Live Your Dreams podcast. We are the dreamers, and the dream makes the world go around. So again, remember, like, subscribe, follow us, share. We will make these dreams go around, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much, George, for coming on board.
It's a pleasure.
Take care, everybody.